You know that awareness is at the root, at the start of every healing journey. And today, I am going to have a very special guest to help me uncover and unpack bringing awareness to insecurity and jealousy in relationships. So, if you are experienced that in your relationships or have experienced it before, know how to get in the healing end of that. Welcome to Living Intentionally, the podcast that empowers driven women to get unstuck and to take their personal and professional lives to the next level. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I am here to help you create the life you truly desire without burning out. And as a leading expert in living with amplified alignment between your mind, your energy, and your soul purpose, I'll be sharing valuable insights on mindset, energy, self-care, business, and much more. Plus, you get to hear from inspired women who have successfully built businesses and lives that are both meaningful and fulfilling. Join us as we dive into the topic that matter most and uncover the secrets to living intentional. Welcome back. Today, I have a very special name. Her name is Shannon Brian, and she's the founder of Top Self, one of the select few who focus on anxiety and jealousy in relationships. She's a mindset and confidence coach and the host of the Top Self podcast, and she has worked with hundreds to help them break up with bogus belief and start believing in themselves to overcome their anxieties and insecurities. She has been featured in top rated podcasts like The Love Machine, hosted by UK's top dating coach, Date Forever, and Toxic Person Proof. And she has shared her self regulation recipe and how to build high value habits to help audiences relax their minds, achieve change, be more present, and live the life of confidence. All the beautiful things that I love and adore to talk to in
Yeah.
this podcast. So welcome, Shannon. Thank you for being a guest today.
Hi, Carmen. So good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So I am so excited about this topic in this series of healing traumas. And there's all kind of different ways trauma shows up in our lives. And
Mhm.
when we first connected, I thought this was beautiful because this is one of the ways that probably affects most people who are not aware that there might be a traumatic root to how they show up in a relationship, and it's
Mhm.
insecurity and jealousy. And so, before we dive into that, why don't you tell us a little bit of your story and how do you become a coach that helps people with this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, gosh, if you would have told me 8 years ago that I'd be helping other people overcome jealousy in their relationship, I would have said, there's no way, no way I'd be helping somebody else because one, I thought that I was the only one. I thought I was the only one that had the thoughts that I did, that had the anxiety, worried about my partner if they were going to leave or if they were going to cheat on me or if, that any of those things. I thought I was the only one that really had anxiety around this and that had the thoughts that I did. Two, I thought this is just the way that I am. It's just
Mhm.
how I'm built. It's the way I was made, and that's just the way that it was. I had no idea that this was actually a thing. I share this with thousands and thousands and thousands, unfortunately, of other people who suffer from this. And but there are solutions. And so I, years ago, my parents divorced when I was 12. I did not have a relationship with my father. And he was very abusive. We had a violent and chaotic environment growing up as he was an alcoholic. And so once my parents separated, I told him, as long as you're drinking, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And he took that to heart. And so I didn't speak to him again until I was 25, and that was just briefly. And then I didn't speak to him again until about 3 years ago, the last 3 years of his life. We ended up making and creating a really beautiful relationship. But it was, having not having your father there, I told this story to myself my entire life. Well, if my own dad doesn't love me, why would anybody else?
Right.
So I just didn't know I was worthy of love, which caused me to stay in relationships way too long that I should not have been in. Right. And then my insecurity of somebody leaving me and not having someone there, that drove away some good relationships as well.
That's so, there's so many truth bombs that you said there. Starting with the fact that we all think that we are the only person in this world going through something. And I've had the same experience that you've had, Shannon. Like when I first started talking about trauma and about being a workaholic and about, the things that I went through, I was like, I must be the only broken person in this universe. And like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
tell anybody. And then I start talking about it, and it's like, me too, me too, me talking about Me Too movement. And and it's so amazing because we have been conditioned to like suffer in silence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I have made my one of my missions in life, to like bring it out to life, because there's so much that we bottle up inside, and it's hurting us, it's hurting our families, it's hurting the world. And yeah, we need to just stop pretending that we have it all figured out, because we don't.
That's right. We don't. And I think part of it too, talking about it, especially when it comes to trauma, especially when it comes to jealousy, there's a stigma around women who are jealous, people who are
Mhm.
overly jealous in their relationships. And so people don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed by it.
Mhm.
They're ashamed of it. And so they
Mhm.
don't talk about it. And when you don't talk about it, then you don't discover that there are a lot of other people that are suffering just like you.
Right. And so then the other thing that's so interesting to me is that everyone assimilates trauma in a different way, and it inevitably transforms in a secure or insecure attachment style for every
Mhm.
person, right? Mostly insecure. If you have trauma, it's an insecure or anxious, right?
Yeah.
In some way, right? So um in my case, uh emotional neglect too, but not from my dad, it was from my mom. And so my attachment style was avoidant, not insecure,
Mm.
right? So it's really fascinating to me, like, yeah, like kind of same situation ish. Not, I mean, I didn't have an abusive, physically abusive, but like totally like disconnected. So I felt
Yeah.
lonely and abandoned, and nobody loves me, and all these things that I told to myself for years. And again, if my own mother doesn't love me, who's gonna love me, type of thing, right? So I decided that I didn't need anybody. And so I walked into relationships halfway out with half with a
Yeah.
foot out, right? And so of course they didn't work, because I
Mhm.
didn't give them any chance.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the same thing when you're feeling insecure and when you have that anxious attachment style too, right? Because you are continuously waiting for the other shoe to fall. You just know something bad's going to happen. You're
Mhm,
preparing for it. So the whole time you're preparing for it, you're miserable. And then
mhm,
if something does happen, you're miserable. And then you go, see, I knew it. I knew something was going to happen. And so we really, jealousy is never about the present. It is always about the past and the future.
and the
We're
future.
either caught up in the past and protecting ourselves because of what happened to us in the past and protecting ourselves so that it doesn't happen again in the future, right?
And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
yes, I was so jealous in my relationship with my husband that we ended up not even really being able to go out to dinner. Immediately, I would walk into a restaurant and I am searching for potential threats, the
Wow.
waitress, the hostess, other customers, people eating. And I would say, "Oh my gosh, I know it. We're going to be sat right next to her." Whoever it was that I was worried about. And every single time, of course, yeah, we're sat right next to her. We feel like I felt like I'm willing this to happen, but it's just because my brain was so primed to think that everyone was a threat or
Mm,
who I thought was a threat then of course I'm focused on them and I'm kind of bringing that into my life. And so you get into that pattern and you think you're right. You think, yes, this is, I'm exactly what I thought would happen is happening. And this is why I'm like this. This is why I'm going to stay like this.
I actually need to make a commercial here and says, this is how the law of attraction work, people. It works both ways, right? You think
Yeah.
about something, you believe it in your core, your energetic field goes out and God gets it for you. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's not what you want really, but like, yeah. And so that is so fascinating. So like how that's how you were. And so what is the bridge to like, now you
Mhm.
helping people overcome
Yeah.
uh
Woo. It's a journey for sure. And, it doesn't come easy, but there is a solution. And I think one of the biggest things that I start with in telling people is you have to believe that you can change. It's a fundamental
mhm,
part of things actually changing.
mhm.
So, really, just knowing that there is a solution. There are things you can do to tame this jealousy, to stop these racing thoughts, to slow down your mind and really relax your mind. So there are solutions to that. So, but one is believing that your life does not have to stay that way. I mean, I was 100% sure that this is just the way that I was made, and there was nothing that could be done about it. So belief is a big one, but awareness, like you said, that's the topic of this. Awareness is so huge in so many different ways. One, we are probably not aware of all of the insecure things we're doing in our relationship that is hurting our relationship. And so there are certainly some exercises that I do with my clients to say, let's take a look at this. We really want to pull these out of the shadow. One, sometimes you know what you're doing. I knew that I was kind of making comments. I'd make flippant comments here and there. I was checking phone, emails, location, all of that. I was doing it like it was my part-time job. That's how bad it was. But so some things I knew, but I didn't know the frequency in which I was
Mhm,
doing them.
mhm.
And there were some things that were surprising. Like, I didn't realize some automatic reactions that I had to things, that were completely unrelated, unconnected, but I had connected them somehow in my mind through years and years and years of feeling this way. So
Yeah.
those are the two big starters, belief and awareness.
Awareness, I mean, it's the first step to any solution. And um I was just talking to a client earlier today who I am going to make sure I tag him in this show because
Oh,
he can
great.
totally use this episode. um but it really comes down to how bad do you want to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, you have to believe that you can change. But is this like it would be nice to have it? It would be nice to change this. It would be nice to have a, you know, healthy relationship. Or I'm really sick and tired
Yeah.
of feeling this way and not be able to hold a relationship. And I am aware that there is a problem. There's nothing wrong with me, but there's a problem and can be fixed. And I am going to do everything that takes, because you have to break a pattern, you have to break habits, you have to reprogram your mind, create new rules and beliefs. And it's not easy,
Yeah.
but it's worth
No,
it.
it's so worth it. I have a completely different life than I did 8 years ago. Completely same relationship, completely different than it was 8 years ago. You talk about change. I think it's Brené Brown that says everybody wants transformation, but nobody wants to change, right?
Mhm.
Because it's hard. It's
Yes.
hard to make those changes. It's really hard to do that. And yes, I mean, I think you have to get to that place where it's like, I'm going to do whatever I can, what it takes, and then start moving forward with those steps to make those changes. Because yes, it is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. We didn't get in this situation overnight, and it certainly doesn't untangle itself overnight.
Right. And the other thing I have noticed as a coach, and you might have the same experience is, there is a number of people, there's a percentage of people who are aware of the problem. They know
Mhm.
I'm insecure, I'm jealous, and this is causing me a lot of problems. Maybe you already have gotten divorced, maybe you have so many breakups, maybe you just cannot hold a relationship. But then I would say the vast majority of people are living like in la la land and not even aware that there is a problem. And
Mhm.
what would you say to someone that are, I don't know, clues to let just get
Mm.
them thinking about, hey, maybe I should explore the possibility of having an insecure attachment style. Maybe I am not all that right.
Mhm. Yeah. So one really great place to start, I don't know where it originated, but I call it the lifeline exercise. And I think it brings a lot out to someone to go, "Oh, okay, this is a really great way to connect the dots, perhaps." So I'll explain it briefly. You just take a piece of paper, draw a horizontal line across, right? And you're going to just mark. On the top is our good experiences and good memories. On the bottom, bad experiences and bad memories. And then start from as early as you can remember and just make a hash for every event that really stood out that you felt like I really remember that happening, or I feel like that was an eventful moment or time, and what was going on, and just make a tick and kind of write the note. And then you start to see like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because from this time to this time, this is what was happening in my life. And I had forgotten about that.
Mm,
I never made the connection that that happened. And then I had a really hard time in all my relationships afterwards. Because sometimes we easily forget some of the things that happened to us, even if they were pretty significant at the time. So I like the lifeline exercise and going kind of starting at that point.
yeah. The other thing I'll add to that is, and I like about this exercise is that maybe you are only focusing on the bad things that happen to you and
Mhm.
have not put a lot of attention in the good things that happen. Something it was interesting. So I'm working on a TEDx talk, and in that exercise, just building the talk, we go through an up story and a down story. And it was fascinating to me when I was in this workshop how difficult it is for people to find an up story. The down story
Mm.
is so easy. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I have 20,000 ways to like bring the
Yeah,
audience to tears. But I cannot remember one single up story.
right?
And I have to confess, I mean, I did have my up story, but it was not easy.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of awareness to like, wait, whoa. I mean, seriously, count
Mhm.
your blessings. That was me coaching myself, like, count your blessings. There is a whole lot of stuff
Yeah.
that can be an up story. And so I think when because we get stuck in the past with trauma, is because we are you know, in the forest, like staring at
Mhm.
the tree in front of us, and it's like a bad tree. But like if you step back or if you go up 30,000 feet, it's like, oh my God, look at the beautiful flowers and the garden and all the beautiful things that happen along the way. Um, and I heard somewhere, can't remember, maybe Joe Dispenza, maybe. I don't want to give
Mhm.
credit to him, but I was somewhere, it was someone big like that, saying that your brain puts so much more emotionally charged connection to a negative event than a
Mhm.
positive event. So when
Yeah.
you're trying to rewire your brain to overcome a traumatic event or a limiting beliefs or a bad, disempowering rule, you have to intentionally put so much, 5 times more emotionally charged to the positive rewiring thing than what caused you to be stuck. And it was fascinating to me because, yeah, it makes sense. That's why we're, you think about how was your day yesterday. Oh, the first thing you list is all the bad things that went, and it
Mhm.
takes a habit. I mean, like I have created a habit for me, but it's like no, I don't endure going there, right? Like no, let me start with all the good things, and then your energy raises, and then you don't have to think about the bad things. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why gratitude, practicing
Mhm.
gratitude is so important because we do that. There's that tag that gets, placed on that memory, placed on that experience when it's negative. So it's so much easier to remember the negative. It's so much easier to pull out of the negative, right?
Mhm.
So that practicing of gratitude is really important because we do forget that stuff. And especially for those who are anxious, who feel like, I just know that, something's going to happen at any moment, the shoe's going to fall. Well, let's think back. And this really comes into play too when you're jealous in your relationship and you start down that rabbit hole, that trail of thought of, oh my gosh, well, they're out for a work dinner. Well, who are they sitting with? Oh my gosh, are they having drinks together? Well, what if everybody else leaves and they stay? Oh my gosh, what if they stay and they have a really great connection? And then by the time it's over, they're off flying to Mexico, in your mind, right? And so we can really go down that negative train. And so
Mhm.
it's really important to practice that gratitude and to go, you know what? I keep thinking that this shoe's going to fall, but it's been a really long time since that's happened and everything is still okay. They're not running off to Mexico. They actually came home from their dinner just like they do every night. We went to bed together. We woke up the next day. Everything is still okay.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Just the practice the gratitude and the present moment, and you know
Mhm.
what, counting the wins, because that in a way is it's like keeping track of all the things that you can with factual information, because when you have factual information your brain cannot debate that, right? Like
Yeah.
once you have a track record of for the last year, my significant other has come home every night, and then your brain cannot argue with that, right?
Yeah.
um that's beautiful. I know that I've had um a few friends that were very jealous, and they will text me or call me. It's like, I check all the messages and this and that, and my answer was, and I back then didn't have the empathy or the self-compassion
Yeah.
to understand that we had different ways to connect with people. So I always been very secure because I kind of didn't care.
Yeah.
Right. um in fact, it's funny because I made this hoodie for myself, and I got so much attention everywhere I flew with it. I normally use it to go on airplanes, but it was like confidence is sexy.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, that's what it is, right? But in that case, confidence really came from like, it doesn't matter what the other person do because I'm halfway out. But what I would tell my friends was, okay, so you're torturing yourself trying to figure out, smelling the clothes or
Mhm.
looking for the blonde hair. I'm saying blonde just because my friends are from Panama. So we're all like, looking for the blonde hair in the car, the things that,
It's always the blonde.
right?
Yeah, it's always the blonde.
No, I don't think so. But if it's the same hair color, unless it's different length, then you
Yeah.
probably, right? So I was just trying to make yeah, different hair or the smell or the lipstick in the whatever you're looking for, and you never
Mhm.
find, but you're like
Yeah.
searching yourself. And I remember asking them, it's like, what are you gonna do if you find something?
Mhm.
If you are not gonna do anything and you just want to create an argument, this is like self torture,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's might as well you're beating yourself up with a bat, right? Like
Mhm.
now if you are about to just walk because there's been abuse or whatever and you just need proof, then you know
Right.
go be happy, right? But like it's never that. It's always this loop of, and even if you find something, most of
Mhm.
the times you don't do anything with it, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we're not ready, even if we did find something. But I think the majority of the time when we're in that loop, when we're snooping, when we're doing those types of things, it's out of fear and not necessarily because the partner has done something
Mhm.
to create that. A lot of times
Mhm.
that's out of fear. That's out of us thinking that that is a way of protecting ourselves. Well, let me go find out. And the problem with that is, and you called it a loop, and I think that's a perfect way to explain it because, to what end do you continue to look, especially when you don't find anything? Because I know for me, when I didn't find anything, it wasn't a satisfaction that I got. It was, oh, he's really good. Oh, he
Mhm.
must be really good at hiding, or I'm not looking at in the right places, or I'm not looking at the right things, or maybe it's in his car then, or maybe it's so it doesn't stop that need because and as much as we want to argue that there isn't, there is some payoff. We are
Mhm.
getting some payoff for this jealousy. There's
There's
something that
always a
we're
reward, right? If there is a
yeah,
pattern, there's a habit, there's always a
yes.
perceived reward.
Perceived reward. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is a beautiful work that you're doing in the world. I
Yeah.
think so many people can benefit from this. I think social media, it's
Mm.
not very good for people's security, especially with those who have had, any sort of emotional trauma in the past, because there's so much not realness
Yeah, it's
in the
tough.
world. Yeah, that unless you really have a secure self-worth, foundation in you, can tamper with what you believe about yourself. um and so how can people find more about what you do? And so tell us about where to find you on your podcast and all that.
Yes. So feel free to go listen to the podcast. It's called Top Self. And then if anyone, I've got some free resources. If you just want to visit my website, that's topself.com. So there's some free resources there. It'll also connect you that way to the podcast. And you can always schedule a free call with me and just we'll talk about what's happening with you and possible solutions. So thank you so much, Carmen, for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's been a delightful conversation. And yeah, I can't wait to hear, from our communities. They always let us know when, they go and find amazing resources in other places. So I am sure this will be the case. So thank you so much, Shannon, for being here. And I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey there. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Living Intentionally, the podcast where we explore ways to live with purpose and fulfillment. If you're new here, make sure to hit the follow button so you never miss an episode. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at the Carmen Benton. I'm your host, Carmen Benton. I'll be back next week with more insights and inspiration.